Hi guys, in this mini course tutorial series, I'll be showing you how you can create a low poly living room scene from scratch using Blender and rendered by the real-time render engine Eevee. Now, this is pretty much a complete beginner's 3D modeling series, so if you're already familiar with modeling in Blender, you might find this series a little bit too easy. We'll cover everything from modeling all the assets, plus very basic shading, lighting, and we'll finish off with rendering a neat little animation. So let's start off with the sofa. Now I know if you're new to Blender, you might find shortcut keys to be a pain to remember, so I'm going to try my best to not use as much shortcut keys as possible. I mean, I will end up using it sometimes because it just makes the job a lot more easier, but I will try to refrain from doing it as much as I can. Okay, so when you're in Blender, let's go ahead and delete everything else except the cube. So I'm going to go ahead and select the camera by clicking on the camera, and then shift clicking on the light. Then go to Object, Delete to remove it from our scene. Alternatively, you can right click over here and select Delete to delete the objects. Okay, let's go ahead and select our cube. So with the object selected, we want to be able to modify the shape of this object. So change over from Object mode to Edit mode. We'll now start off by modeling the base of the chair where the person will sit on. So let's scale this down on the Z-axis. So change this to scale, and then click and drag on this blue widget over here. Okay, to something like that. So if you have one little box, try and make it about 1, 2, 3 boxes big. So I'll go back to the move tool and move it up to somewhere around there. So 2 little squares up, and we'll make it about as large as 3 little boxes. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then with the length, we can keep it like 2 bigger boxes, which is the same as 2 meters, but I might actually scale it up just a tad. That's about it, just a tad. To go to front view, you just need to go to View, Viewpoint, Front, or I'm using the shortcut key numpad 1 on my keyboard. Okay, so the front view now looks good, so let's now shape it from the side view. So let's go to View, Viewpoint, let's say right. And let's scale this one down to be around about like 1 box or 1 meter wide. So let's click and drag this down on this green little widget. And I'll just move it back somewhere around there. So let's go and scale. Yeah, something just a little bit above 1 meter should be fine. And yeah, that should be good enough. Cool. So now let's start to model the sides of the chair. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this one by going to Mesh, Duplicate. And then let's just move this to the side somewhere around here. And I'm just going to scale this one to be really, really thin because it's just going to be on the side over here. And let's just move this one to the side so it's around about there. So let's scale this one down, make it about a little bit bigger than maybe 1 little box. Okay, so now we want to make this part a little bit higher. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to click and drag this. I'm going to go over to this mode over here, which is the face select mode. So go ahead and click that, and then click the top of that face over here. And then you want to change over to this tool over here, the extrude tool. So it's a modeling tool. And then you just want to click and drag this little yellow widget and just move it up to something like that. We don't want to make it too high, but we'll just put it somewhere around there. Select this loop cut tool over here and then add in a loop cut right in the middle. So just hover your mouse over here and then click, and that's it. Then we'll go over to this box select mode and change back to the vertex select. So we can see these little points over here, and just go ahead and select this one as well as this one. Oops. If I want to select all of them at the same time, maybe I might have to hit shift and then select all these ones. Okay, once you select all of that, we'll just go ahead and delete those vertices. So let's go to Mesh, Delete Vertices, or you can use the shortcut key X Vertices. Okay, so you have something like that. So now we'll go over to the modifier properties by clicking this little widget over here, Add Modifier, Mirror Modifier. So now it's automatically mirrored to the other side. So whatever change that I do over here, oops, sorry, select that one. Whatever change I do over here will be automatically mirrored onto this side as well. So we save pretty much half the amount of time in order to model this. So let's now look at the back. So for the back, I'm just going to go ahead and pretty much select this face over here. Let's duplicate that by going mesh, duplicate. And let's just move it back on the Y axis. So in this case, we might need to hit the letter Y on your keyboard to constrain it on the Y axis. So it doesn't go up, it doesn't go down, and it doesn't go sideways. We just want to move it back a little bit. We can go ahead and go to the extrude tool again, click and drag this yellow widget, and let's move it wider, let's say about there. So it's that wide. It doesn't really matter how wide, maybe you can make it about 2 little boxes should be fine, or almost 2 little boxes. That should be fine. And then go over to the top and select this top face over here, click and drag this one even higher than the armrest. So this is just going to be for the back of our sofa. And then what we want to do next is we want to go to this mode, the edge select, and select this edge over here. And then we'll go to the move widget and then move this back on the Y axis by clicking and dragging this Y widget. So we get this little nice looking shape over here. Okay, I might go ahead and select this entire area, so this linked area. Either you can hover your mouse and hit L to select this entire area, or you can go to mesh, sorry, let me control Z, or you can go to select linked, and then linked. All the vertices, edges, and faces that are linked together. So not these other ones, because they're pretty much separate from this linked one. They're not connected to each other. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll move this in on the Y axis so that it just touches the end, or just touches the end. Or maybe just a little bit out. Oops. A little bit out, like so. So that should be fine. Go back to the face select mode, then select this one, shift select this one, move it out on the Y axis just to increase the length, and that should be fine. The back is now done. So let's look at adding the pillows now. Okay, so for the pillows, I might add in a cube somewhere over here. So let's go ahead to this cursor tool, click that one and click this somewhere over here. Doesn't really matter where. And then go to Shift A. Well, actually what I might do is I'll go out of edit mode and go to object mode. We'll create this as a separate object. So go to add mesh cube. So we add in another cube, but this will be for the back resting pillows. So let's go back to edit mode again, and let's scale this whole thing down. Oops, sorry, select this one. Sorry, select all the linked ones again. And then click and drag this white circle and scale everything down. Now we'll go to the move tool, move it up, move it out, and pretty much just shape it like a pillow. So let's scale it in the Y axis, and I want to scale it on every axis except the Y axis, so I'll click on this green little square over here. So that will scale on everything except the Y axis. That should be a good start. Let me just get out of edit mode, so either you can go back to object mode or you can hit tab on your keyboard to go out. So that's a quick shortcut key. But anyways, I'll just use the manual way from going from edit mode to object mode. Select the pillow, and then in the modifier properties, add modifier array. Okay, and then over here, just hold your shift key and move a little bit on the offset to add in a little bit of distance between the two little cubes over here. Okay, and then what we want to do is we want to go to this move tool and let's move it on the x-axis. And what my goal is, I probably want to have, let's say, 3 bigger pillows that are lined up over here. So let's go ahead and turn up this count to 3. So it's like the mirror modifier, except it's just duplicating the same object 3 times. So now if I go back to edit mode, and now if I click on this green little square to scale everything, these other ones will automatically scale as well. Okay, why I did that is because I want to know the exact amount of scale that I need to do in order to fit 3 pillows on our sofa. Okay, so let's go to the loop cut tool, clicking on that little widget, click once, and then expand this little panel and change this to 2 cuts. do the same thing from the horizontal direction. So click over here, change this to 2 cuts. So go to face select and go back to this selecting thing over here. Let's go and select this face as well as this face by shift clicking that, and let's scale that on the y-axis. So let's go Control L to select everything, or you can hit A on your keyboard to select everything, or just select all. That should be fine. Then go to rotate, and let's just rotate this on the x-axis by clicking and dragging this red curve over here, and let's just rotate it a little bit like that. Let's go to move and move it back until it aligns with our sofa, like so. Okay, something like that should be good. So the final thing left to do is to add in the stand for our sofa. So for that one, I want to do it a different way. So let's tab out of edit mode. So or go edit mode to object mode, and let's go ahead and add in another cube. So add mesh cube, and let's go back to edit mode, and let's scale this one down by clicking and dragging this white circle. And I'll go to the move tool and click and drag this white circle over here to move it over here. And let's go to the scale and click and drag this red line, which is the x-axis, to have a thickness of, say, something like that. And then on the side, we'll just click and drag this blue axis, the z-axis, the height in other words, to be something around there. Let's go ahead and move it up. In this case, I want to be able to scale and move it at the same time instead of keep on changing these modes. So I'll go to the last one, the transform mode. It has all the modes of moving, rotating, and scaling in one widget. Okay, so I can click and drag this blue line to move it down, then scale it up a little bit. Oh, sorry, I might have to move it down even more. Then scale it on the Z. And move it up a little bit. Perfect. Okay, so we should have something like that, but we also need to have the length along the chair as well. So let's move it somewhere over here. And let's click and drag this green to scale it on the Y. And let's move it back. So it's got a viewpoint right. Okay, so maybe something like that should be good enough. Yeah, that should be good enough. So after this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the face select this face, and also just go around and select this face, and then go to, by the way, if you want to navigate around, you can either click and move your view like that, or you can hold down your middle mouse button and click and drag. That does the same thing. Okay, so we can go ahead and go to mesh, delete, faces only. So we're left with something that looks like that. So now go to select all to select all the vertices, edges, and faces, and then go to mesh, duplicate, and then hit X on your keyboard to constrain it on the X-axis, and let's move it along to something over here. So let's now give this sofa a little bit of a shape and a little bit more realism. So let's now tab out of edit mode, and let's start with the base. Now the problem with this sofa is that the edges are too sharp. It's too harsh. It doesn't look like a sofa that you can lie down and relax on. It looks like a sofa that robots use to casually hang out on. The way we can smooth out these edges is by using another modifier called the subdivision surface modifier. So let's go to, so make sure you're in the modifiers properties, go to add modifier, subdivision surface, and straight away it appears that we have completely ruined our 3D model. But not to worry, it's purely the subdivision surface doing its best to smooth out our mesh and make it look really, really smooth. So the subdivision surface is generally used for organic type of models like characters, creatures, and things like that, not really hard surface models like sofas and tables and chairs and things like that. But it's okay, we can still use it. I just bumped up the viewport count to 2 to add more subdivisions. So it just subdivides this entire mesh. So let's now change over from object mode to edit mode, and let's now add in holding loops in order to sharpen out these edges a little bit better. So A holding loop is pretty much like going to the loop cut tool, clicking the loop over here, and then going back to the move tool and moving it all the way to the end to pretty much sharpen out the end. So we'll do it from one side, we also do it onto the other side as well. So just click this one, go to the move tool and move it onto the edge over here. I'll also do the same thing again. So loop tool, click over here, go to the move tool and move it along the edge at the back. Can't really see what's going on at the back, so I guess I don't really care too much. That should be good enough. And that's it. In terms of the base of the sofa, that should be good enough. So I'll do the same thing with the side as well. So now if I tab out of edit mode, we can start to see that our sofa is starting to look like a proper sofa that we can hang out on after a long day's work or long day's school. Oh, sorry, we also forgot to do the back. Okay, so now the sofa starts to look like something that you would feel more comfortable sitting on. Cool. So if you want, we can go ahead and add in another loop cut right in the middle over here. Oops, sorry. And then let's go back to vertex select, select this, oops. And then go back to vertex select and also the move tool. Select the middle one over here and move it up just to add in a little bit of like a height to our sofa. So from the front on, it looks like it's going like this kind of a shape, if you know what I mean. Like a sofa. So let's move it up. Move this one up a little as well. So it starts to look a little bit more realistic. Okay, so we're not going for realism here, we're going for a low poly look. So it doesn't matter too much. Okay, so once we've done that, tab out of edit mode. Oops, sorry, tab out of edit mode, select the pillows and also add in a subdivision surface modifier just to smooth things out. Okay, so by default, this is looking not too bad, which is good. But I might go ahead and add in some loop, like holding loops over here as well. So go to select and then go to the face select mode. You might just bump this out a little bit more. If you want to be able to have more influence over these other ones, turn on this proportional editing tool. So if I do that and then move this out, you can see that if I scroll in and out, we can influence even more vertices to move along as well. So let me just right click to undo that, and let's just scroll it down and move a little bit more just to get a nice smooth fall off. Okay, so I think in terms of the basics of that should be fine. I might just select everything by hitting A or select all and move up on the Z axis so we see a bit more of that pillow. Right now the pillow is going right through the sofa, which is not realistic. Okay, so I think that's looking good. We could make our pillows a little bit fatter. So go to the select, go to scale and scale out on the y-axis. A bit more plush, like so. Okay, cool. So that's it. Our sofa is now completed. So obviously we can make it look, right now we can see these weird artifact lines that won't look good when rendered. So we need to make it all look smooth. So let's just quickly go around and select the object and go to object, shade smooth. That's the same with this one, object, shade smooth. Okay, so that will look even better when rendered. Now sometimes when you do 3D modeling, you'll find out you get this weird little lighting artifact over here. One of the main reasons is probably because there's a face in the middle. So if I just go to X-ray mode, you can see that there's a face right in the middle, inside over here, where the user will never see it. Now that's not really good to have when you're doing 3D modeling. So it's always important that you remove anything that's in the middle. These kind of issues can sometimes happen when you use a mirror modifier and you don't take into account your topology. We'll just go ahead and go to mesh and just delete the face only. Okay, so if I just turn off X-ray, we can see that that weird lighting artifact is now gone. And we have a very nice smooth looking mesh, which is what we want. Okay, but before we call this done, we need to quickly fix up the stand. So for this one, I'm also going to go ahead and add in a subdivision surface modifier just to smooth everything out. And we also need to go ahead and tab into edit mode and add in holding edges just to sharpen things up. So go ahead and add in a loop cut. Let's change the cuts to 2. And let's go to the scale and scale out on the y-axis and make it touch almost all the way to the end. Same with the bottom. So loop cut, click over here, 2 cuts, go to scale and scale on the y almost all the way to the end. But we still want to have that nice little smooth fall off over here. So I think that should be enough. So we can bump up the viewport count to make it even smoother. That's looking good. So right now it looks like as if it's a single piece of thin paper that's holding up this sofa, which is not realistic. We need to give it a bit of thickness. So the quickest way to do that is by going to add modifier, solidify. And it does exactly what it says. It solidifies your plain looking mesh. So now we have a bit of thickness to it. And that's pretty much all we need to do. So let's also go to, we'll tab out of edit mode, go to object, shade smooth, and that looks good. We also need to go ahead and do the same to the other side as well. So let me just go ahead and select linked. So select one of these faces or verts or edge, and then go to select linked. And let's go ahead and delete this. I guess I didn't really need to create this initially, but now let's go ahead and select one of these ones and select the linked vertices, and let's duplicate that mesh. Oops. Let's duplicate that mesh and hit X on my keyboard to move it on the X-axis so that we have it onto the other side as well. Cool, so let me tab out of edit mode. Let's bump up the viewport count once more just to give it a bit more smoothness. So we now have our final sofa modeled. Cool, so let's now give it some basic shading to it, and we can pretty much call this done afterwards. So let's go to the shading workspace of Blender. So this is where we give it a little bit of a nice shade to it. Let's go ahead and go to the materials panel, or you can go ahead and click a new material over here. Both will do the same thing. So if I go to material over here and over here hit new, it's the same thing as hitting new over here as well. This will just show you a more visual user interface of what settings you want to play around with the look and feel of your object. And this one will use the node system, which is a bit more advanced, but it's something that you should probably get used to if you want to create some awesome looking shaders in Blender. So I'm not going to really play around with adding, like there's tons of different shaders you can add, like principled, which is the common shader that you use in Blender. There's also volume if you want to create things like cloud, or glossy if you want to create shiny objects, glass if you have glass, emission if you have light sources, subsurface scattering if you have human skin or milk or things like that, translucent if you have like leaves where light passes through. There's all these advanced shaders, but I'm not going to look at that in this series. We'll just stick with the principled shader throughout this entire series. So for the base color, choose whatever color you like to have for your sofa. For my one, I might go with a white color. That should be fine. But I don't want to have this kind of shininess to it. So if I go to the rendered mode, which is this one over here, this is what it will look like in your final render. So I guess in this case we could probably add in a light. So go to add light, let's just say spotlight, or just a point light should be fine. And let's go ahead and move that. If I click this out, let's go ahead and click and drag this white circle to move it out of the way. So this is how it will look like when rendered. So as you can see, it's looking a little too shiny. So we'll start with this one. So what we want to do is we want to turn down the shininess by increasing the roughness. So as you can see, if I go all the way down, it's almost like a mirror. If I go all the way higher over here, it becomes more and more like a soft, it becomes more and more like a diffuse style object. Okay, so that's what we want. I guess we can also turn down the specular because we don't need as much specularity going on over here. Specularity is also associated with shininess and things like that. So let's just turn down that. And we'll name this material something like sofa. Okay, so once we've done that, we'll also go ahead and select this pillow. And we'll reuse that same material by just clicking this material widget over here and selecting sofa. So all that shininess is gone. For this one, we'll go ahead and make it a shiny kind of metal material. So let's call this one metal. If you don't have any material there, if it's empty for you, just go ahead and hit new and call it something like sofa holder. I don't know, make it sound something smart. What we're going to do is we're going to turn up this metallic thing. So if I go to preview, we can sort of see what our material looks like. So no metallic, it's just like a diffuse color. But if I turn it up to like 0.8 or 9, it starts to look metallic. The roughness, we can turn it down so we can see it starts to look more like that metal look. And specular, we can increase it a bit. To be honest, I don't really see much happening with this one, but anyways. And that should be enough. We can't really see that very clearly because we've got to do a few more little setups within Eevee to make it look right. But if I go to this look dev mode, which is the one before, to see the actual materials and everything, you can see that we have a more metallic look for our sofa. Okay? Alright, so that's it. You've now created yourself a nice little low poly sofa. We'll now move on and create some pillows for our sofa.